and welcome to another episode of our podcast series. In today's podcast, this podcast series is actually centered around celebrating the 10 years of the Swachh Bharat mission. So, under the campaign of Swachhata Hi Seva, we bring to you this podcast to bring forth the stories of change that have taken place under this mission. So, we have with us today Ms. Akhila Sivadas. She represents the organization CFAR, which is Center for Advocacy and Research. Uh, we welcome you, ma'am, and hope you're
Thank
doing.
you.
So, just to begin with, we'll ask you what is the work that you do, and could you just briefly tell us about that?
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And just to take off from your opening lines about, celebrating 10 years. Yes, I think it's been a genuinely a a shift, a celebratory shift when it comes to urban sanitation, something that was long neglected. And suddenly the last 10 years, we've been able to put, shall we say, bring to the fore many festering issues, particularly when it comes to the urban poor. And we had actually begun this work not because there was a program or because there was, some kind of a, shall we say, buzz around the word or around the issue, but because, communities were in deep distress. Communities living in informal settlements or what we call unauthorized settlements were
Right.
all in deep distress. There was absolutely no way in which, they could access safe and dignified, sanitation.
Mm.
So it was something that was, has been festering from 2007. It actually was, you know, shall we say, even reaching, I would say, what we call hysterical, proportions, because women were finding themselves up, and open defecation is not a choice that communities make happily. It's not like in the villages where you have some measure, modicum of privacy. You
Right.
can, there's place to sort of spread out. Cities, it's all very, very very humiliating for them. And it was like a cry from the heart, so to speak. So
Mhm.
we had actually started way back, and we had experimented, in fact, with the twin pit toilet for the first time in Jaipur as early as 2011, 2012. And later, when the Swachh Bharat mission came in, this was actually a practice that was, adopted from the rural sanitation program. But nobody knew exactly, its adaptability to the city and to different locations. But fortunately, it worked in Jaipur. And that became, as when Swachh Bharat Mission came in, it actually became like a learning site. Scores and hordes of municipal officials visited the site to learn about how communities adopted the practice. As far as technology is concerned, it's simple. There's no rocket science.
Right.
The local mason and the local uh, whatever workers can establish something like this. But the adoption that happened, and this happened before the subsidy was promoted. This will happen on their own expense, happened at their own behest and will. So it became a learning. Clearly there was a felt need, and and the system is also trying to reach out to them. The community is also trying to reach out to the system. So we found ourselves placed in that, shall we say, that specific position of actually linking up the two ends or the two ends of the spectrum. At one level, all this looks very, simple because, you're doing nothing. You're like a traffic cop, directing the traffic from one side to the other side and then reverse on the other side. It's not as simple as that because, urban populations have multiple stresses and multiple vulnerabilities. And there is no ready-made cohesion. It's not like they come from the same place or they have the same sort of affiliations or affinities. So all that has to be built. And with urban poor communities, their strength is what they call their social capital, their ability to collectivize and act as as a purposeful interest group, pursuing an issue. That's what we did. We, over the last few years, since 2007, we were at it from 2012 till about 2017, not only, building along with, Swachh Bharat, building alternatives. For instance, in the city of Delhi that we were in, Jaipur, we had very early success. In Delhi, we were struggling because they don't allow individual household toilets. The Delhi government was, hell-bent on just providing community toilets, huge community sort of, toilets, which meant a lot of work in terms of operation, maintenance, getting, even, managing the daily traffic to the toilet, all that we did in many ways. And USAID were actually, in their own, whatever, land and jurisdiction, they had about, some 50 odd bastis where, some kind of, modeling could be done, out of which we, were assigned 13 bastis. And till date, you will see the community toilets over there are, way beyond or way different or way better than the others because of the ownership of the community. We, realized how much, ownership mattered. And then from 2017, we moved in a very intensive way, 18 actually, when the first phase of the SBM was being withdrawn. And now you had actually entered into a much more enduring sort of, strategy of ODF plus and ODF plus plus, so that the entire value chain could be sort of, strengthened. And the communities have a big role to play in that, not only as end users, but as part of the entire loop of supply. Because, just getting a vehicle into a basti is not easy, a cesspool vehicle into the basti. Roads are narrow, animals can come under it, children can come under it. There are a lot of sort of, challenges to, operating in that kind of environment. Pipelines don't reach, these things don't reach, all kinds of, challenges. The cesspool vehicle is too sort of big. They don't have that kind of, money and resources to immediately spend that kind of money. And their requirements are also different. So this program really helped in two ways. What we did on the entire thing was, firstly, we developed this QR code. We popularized the QR code. That is at one level. At another level, we set up what is called a single window at the BMC, where the team would, navigate the vehicle, where to go, what is the shortest distance to go at one level. At the community level, at the settlement level, there will be, community management committee members supporting the family. So that, at that particular point of time, there is no sort of, shall we say, fallout, or, either the money has not been given, or a fight is broken, or they've come too late, or something has happened on the way. We didn't want all of that. So we streamlined that entire process. We actually piloted first, tasted some bit of success, around 6,000 households or something. We piloted, plus 600 households we piloted, found some measure of success and, cooperation and, wanting to get it properly desludged with, licensed, providers, all of that. And then sort of to ensure that it actually goes to the plant. It doesn't get dumped on the way. And all of that was, streamlined. So the vehicle owners wanted 1,000 a day. He said, fine, we would line up 4 houses on one day. He would get his 1,000. They will get their rate of 300, 400. They were happy. And they would also ensure that it is properly done. Sometimes they also cheat you and do some half-hearted work. And then you're again forced to call the vehicle and desludge. And so all of that, affordability, a good experience, a good customer experience, a good provider experience, and with the system, and all of this done by the community. So that is one thing that we, popularized as part of this. We found that this was not a malaise just in the settlements. Even in the apartments, they were not using the licensed providers. they were actually encouraging many sort of, shall we say, illegal, practices. So the community went and educated them, and now this become like a movement. And meanwhile, they also, the city government, state government, and the city government started, bringing in community itself to be the cesspool of operators. So it became like within the family, you knew exactly who your operator was. And in fact, you'd go out of the way to ensure that they get the business. There was almost a kind of a camaraderie built around it and a sense of, shared. So you got your sanitation done, you got your customers satisfied, you got your workers engaged, and then you got your larger environment feeling also that maybe we should also do the same thing. Why do we do things that are not meant to be done? So that kind of a work we did. So we actually, to do this kind of work, you need what are called operating structures on the ground. You can't just do it with one Swachh Saathi or a Jal Saathi. They're too few and too far between, and they're like anchors. So we set up community management committees. This was federated at the ward level and at the city level into a single window forum. The single window forum members will go to the BMC office. The single window forum members will go to the zonal office. They will coordinate the provider. The community management committees will work with the community. The community management committees will have representation from scheduled caste households, from tribal households, from disability households, from diverse gender or transgender households, so that they, link up with their constituents.
I have
popularize.
This single window that you mentioned, this also had members from the community, or like
yes,
how was
they were federated. The community management committee was in the slum level. Okay. 2 members from each slum will go to the ward level.
Okay.
The ones that are slightly more articulate, the ones that are slightly more active, who can deal with systems will go to the ward level. And they will become the single window forum members. They will attend all the meetings. They will, be part of all this sort of, shall we say, the programmatic process.
Right.
The community management committees that are in the slum will work with all the frontline workers. Everybody was brought together because, the Swachhta Saathis, not everybody would listen to them. They don't represent the community, whereas these people represent different sections of the community. So tribal households have their own, constraints, have their own challenges. You can't, make them do what you want them to do if they're not convinced. So the community management committee members will convince them. They'll in fact tell them how they are practicing it, bring them to their homes and show. There's no sort of odor, there's no smell. Look at my environment, it's so much cleaner. So create that kind of, stimulus and incentive and, so shall we say a kind of a way of, getting people to feel this is all meant for me. It's not something that's been imposed on me, So that kind of, participation we increased. And the community management committees are there everywhere. They're actually now very active in all the ward committees. We've also created we've actually created in Jaipur, for instance, we've created a resource pool where a spectrum of, persons with disabilities, every disability has a different kind of, barrier. It's not everybody is not a wheelchair. Absolutely. Somewhere, you need different things. So they have actually created a resource pool. That resource pool has been registered and it's been embedded in the social justice and welfare because they are the people who are social justice and empowerment. So they are the people who are, are the sort of nodal department for, persons with disabilities. And they are helping them in designing programs, processes, in sensitizing everybody about different disabilities. So the community plays a very active role. All of this is voluntary. We are always asked, how come it is voluntary? Don't they have expectations? After all, they're spending time, and time is invaluable. You can spend that time making some money. You can spend that time doing something else for your own personal betterment. Why would you work for others? And, they don't understand how communities, have suffered so much, and when they get an opportunity to improve their lifestyle and they can see things changing, if it changes, then their engagement with the change becomes very, very strong because
Right.
they feel that, all the money they were making, they were squandering it away in, bad health and bad, have whatever, bad pursuits, let's put it that way, things that were not working. So you do something like this and you improve the overall, well-being, even they benefit. So, and all this is done in a very collaborative way. It's not like they're spending hours. They're spending it together. So what you call the person hours, becomes huge because of the fact that, so many people are engaged. It's done by rotation. It's done depending on where the troubleshooting is happening. Depending on where the needs are getting expressed, So, for instance, another thing they did was that, they found that in waste management, the waste collectors, are not very considerate with people with disability. They just rush their vehicle. Some are, they make one or two sounds and they expect people to rush out, give the waste, and then they run away. The day's work is over. But people with disability take time, they have to so everywhere they have put signage. Wherever the homes of people with disability, they have put signage. There they have to spend a good 10 minutes. Wait, if they've not collected waste, because of their impatience or they're not knowing that, they have to wait here, then, things, they're too bad. They have to do it now. So, and this signage is actually helping all other service providers because they know that in this particular lane, there are people with disability. And, persons with disability are highly scattered. They're not like a conglomerate that,
Right.
so all of this is essential. It's
If I
also
may just
essential.
ask, ma'am, with respect, the CFAR has been working for over 2 decades now, and specifically on this aspect for more than a decade now. I think the organization is, if I may say, trailblazing the work that is being done under this mission. If you can highlight, like, what are like the number of community members that CFAR has
It
traditionally
runs,
worked?
it runs into, we had actually an inclusion figure of 96,000. Okay. And we started in 2018, but, it took time for the program to, recalibrate.
Yes.
Open defecation came to an end, and then you got into your next phase of programming, which is, and largely supported by Amrut, on ODF++, all the, infrastructure was, strengthened. All that was taking time. Just getting 3 cesspool vehicles of 1,000 cc would take a couple of months. It's not like it'll happen overnight. Correct? The supply, streamlining supply is a big challenge. And, the communities have to be patient with the entire process. But by 21, a lot of that had crystallized. Between 19 and 21, there was a period of lag. And then, of course, we were overtaken by the COVID. And that had its own set of, predicaments and challenges. So by 21 October, things seemed to pick up. And a little bit of, streamlining happened on the supply. From 21 to 22 December, we were able to ensure that level of inclusion. And when you say 96,000, you don't mean, 5 for water and 10 for sanitation, because you can't do sanitation without water, and you can't do, you can't sort of have proper, safely managed wash. If you don't manage water, if you don't manage your sanitation, your water is going to get contaminated.
Right.
So it's all comes together as a, as a set of services. So 96,000 had to be achieved. And, and 21, they were ready. So it's not like anybody was waiting. But there are huge numbers of, what we call a huge lot of, what we call bureaucratic procedures. It's not easy to go there and lay a line or, lay a sewerage or improve the wash infrastructure. It's easy to do it in the apartments, but when it comes to bastis, when it comes to these settlements, there are many, many issues. Sometimes you have to even remove a hutment because you can't lay it otherwise. And sometimes it is overlapping with the, other drains. So there are many, many problems. So they, worked day and night with both the municipal corporation, with all the service providers, all the, levels of feasibility, all the levels of, data, evidence, streamlining the whole process, getting, the communities to cooperate. There are a lot of things that you have to, bear with while all this is happening. It's not like something that, it's not a prefabricated, that you make it somewhere and then you lay it in 10 hours. It's not, Maggie noodles pre-cooked and, the last 20 seconds you cook. None of those, quick fix solutions. They're all very sort of, laborious, labor intensive, and they're process intensive. And that is how it's with their support, with their coordination, that even the local authorities were able to, reach their whatever targets in many areas. Desludging is still continuing. We're still struggling with, streamlining what we call periodic desludging, proper desludging, mechanized desludging, a proper sort of, shall we say, a proper coordination right from the plant to the household, from the treatment plant to the household. And that's being attempted thanks to the community.
Right.
We have been able to, get the Jaipur Municipal Corporation to actually set up community toilets, which are, gender sensitive or gender inclusive. So you have place for children, you have place for, disabled, you have all the equipment or all the sort of, assisted, features or accessibility features for, persons with disability. You have your own, set of arrangements, everything from the ramp to everything has been, generated, designed, and being maintained by the community. They are very sort of very integral to the whole process of, sustaining that service properly. And after many years of, with a lot of indignity, they've now got a place where they can actually go. And it's also become a place where they come together. And there's a lot of constructive activities going on over there. The transgenders are also sensitizing the men, the women, everybody that drops in at the, toilet. It also becomes a seat of, what we call social bonding. So all of these experiments have happened. And thanks to the community, once again, and of course, a very responsive system. We've never had to struggle with any kind of what we call apathy, indifference, or insensitivity. In fact, the last few years have been a, eye-opener that, once everybody are on the same wavelength, there is a proper communication. Everybody is, taken into confidence. No one is taken for granted. When you make that, as your anchor of, all sort of, programming, that is having people with, brought in and, persuaded to think together, then you're, there's no looking back. You're just moving from success to success. The other thing that we've experimented with, and we think that this is something that we should really integrate in the long run into all programming, two things we have done. One, not all communities are mobile. There are elderly, there are sick, there are people that are very far away, just the sheer distance. So we have used what is called the IVRS and the mobile radio and the mobile app. This mobile app has a feedback mechanism. The feedback mechanism has been connected with the grievance redress portal of, both the municipal corporation. So directly the voices of complaint, distress is relayed every morning. To stimulate all of this, we have in every sort of settlement We have both young and old people who have volunteered as what they call a scholars club. They take their phone. If people are not, they're bedridden, they don't even have a phone. Many women don't have phones. The men take them away at work. They don't have a personal phone. They have a household phone. So, the Scholars Club actually ensures that the people that really need to be, communicating or voicing their issues are, they are reached out to.
Right.
And we have something like an 85%, redressal success, and the grievance redress system has been done in such a way that once you give a feedback, and it goes directly to the concerned person. It doesn't go here and there. It goes to the concerned person. If in the stipulated time that person does not respond, it gets escalated to his or her boss, and then that, is not a very good, happy sign, because that shows that, you've not been doing your seva.
Right.
So, uh, uh, so there is very quick response. It can be even a no, but
Right.
with reason. It
Right.
need not always be a yes. But the point is, the communities don't want to be ignored. They're not some small child throwing tantrums, asking for everything within the next 5 minutes. They are willing to wait even 3 to 5 years for issues to get resolved. But they want to know why, and they want to know how, and they want to know what, and I think that's only fair. So just the whole, business of communication,
Right.
and making it a two-way process. That is, you speak and then you also speak, And very often in this interactive system, the response comes back. If we give a complaint at about 9 or 11 in the morning, by between 3 and 5, we get a response. Most complaints are very doable. Most issues are nippable. You can nip it in the bud if you want to,
Right.
if you are inclined that way.
I think the work that CFAR is doing, uh, it's incredible. I think the challenges are uh, common in the sector, but for CFAR, the centerpiece there is community-driven approaches. And one of the key highlights for the Swachh Bharat mission as well is to engage communities towards improving sanitation and solid waste management as well. Like CFAR has been working with the urban poor, working with communities, and I think challenges came, like you mentioned, ma'am, with regard to the dignity that women face for access to sanitation. And CFAR has worked tremendously to link the two ends. And given the work that you've done in Jaipur and the work that you've done in Delhi, despite the challenges of narrow roads or specific demands,
And in Bhubaneswar. Bhubaneswar
and
and
Bhubaneswar
Jaipur
as well.
are two, sort of,
Yes, I
yeah.
think those are, I mean, it is not just providing solutions based on prescribed solutions, but it is providing solutions that the communities need based on what the communities identify. So it's a very
It's also, I think it's about, recognizing that at one level there's a formal wash system, a water sanitation hygiene system,
right.
and that system plays its role. But finally, it's like saying that you can take a horse to the pond, but you can't make it drink. Okay. That
Absolutely.
final act of drinking actually emerges from something that is much more, organic. It doesn't
Right.
emerge because, you set up a school doesn't mean your children will go to that school. You'll have to close it because you have not engaged the community to appreciate that school or to understand what the school is about. I think it is that process. And now today, with where we are in both the cities, both the systems, that is the community system and the administrative and the program system, the service system, the urban local bodies, they're working together. We are actually not needed. We are now engaged in other things.
Right.
A day-to-day process, they're doing it on their own. And we also have one of the things that has spurred all this action is what we call a dashboard. Every on all the issues around wash, water, sanitation, hygiene, plus climate,
Right.
plus, gender. That is, persons with disability, persons of diverse gender, women, are all there in the dashboard.
Right.
That's
And
Yeah.
this entire, all the data is there. Every week, the data is updated on waste management, is properly compiled from the Basti by the community. And the municipal corporation brings the data from the apartments on waste. They don't have the same set of problems that the Basti people have. And this is, updated every week. And every month, there is a review. And it is in this review we found that, the disabled households were not able to give waste because these guys were running, running at their own pace and not understanding that there is a varied pace. So that was rectified. Then we
Taking notes
found
on
that,
this, ma'am, as you're speaking, because I think like I may just run out of paper while taking these notes because the work is so enormous. And through this initiative, I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to capture the stories on ground. And I think the joining from CFAR today is something that is quite enriching for us. So we'd like to firstly thank you for that, ma'am. But I
thank you.
think
Thank you.
the major key points that we take back with us is that it's a community-driven approach. Ensuring the pay, like the thing that you mentioned about ensuring the pay is provided to the desludgers. What is asked is paid, but also there is an accountability aspect integrated into that.
Okay.
Then further working on representation of communities, not just on gender, but also on disability, to work for people, have infrastructure which is built for persons with disabilities, and with respect to
Elderly.
collaborative engagement.
Yeah.
And I think disability and inclusivity is so important, but so difficult to actually integrate. But learning from you and learning from your organization's work, I think there is a lot that can be done further. And the fact that you mentioned about the feedback redressal and the grievances, uh, how they are addressed based on volunteers from the Callers Club who come in to assist, I think that's a step in the future direction. So if I may just summarize it in this way, that CFAR is an organization that sees far into the future. So
Thank you.
uh, for us,
Fair enough.
this particular episode has been quite an enriching experience to learn about the organization's incredible
And
work.
if you want to do a podcast with the Callers Club, please do it. They're very, very articulate team of people.
Absolutely.
And they, share their experiences, share their music, share their poetry, all of that.
Absolutely. We would like to thank you for your time, ma'am, for this particular
Thank you.
podcast.
Thank you very much.
And
we
we'll
wish we could have spoken in more depth and we could have gone on and on hearing you talk about the amazing work that you've done.
True.
But maybe we'll have to make another separate one for that.
yes.
So
Thank you. Thank you. Very much.
But a big
Truly
cheer to
appreciate
CFAR for trailblazing and working together with the Swachh Bharat mission and taking the work forward. And on the celebration of 10 years of Swachh Bharat mission, I hope that CFAR continues to do what it does,
Yes.
and with bigger results and continuing with a community-based approach.